Gary Lillico began driving a school bus for the first time this past September in Harrison Hot Springs, BC, 2 hours east of Vancouver. Almost immediately, he had a nagging feeling. Why were there no seatbelts on that school bus?
I carry kids from kindergarten through grade 12. I drop off at 2 schools. No, they're beautiful little guys. Each of all my students, I just would hate to see them hurt or even worse, injured. Something I just don't know that I could deal with.
Then in October, Gary saw the Fifth Estate story about how thousands of Canadian kids have been injured and many killed because they don't have seatbelts on their school buses.
It bugs me in the pit of my stomach that I feel angry. I don't know what more it's going to take, how many more crashes and how many lives are going to have to pass before this thing can get done. I think the documentary said there's something like 40,000 school buses in Canada hauling about 2 million kids a day. That's a recipe for an accident somewhere down the road. It's inevitable again, right? It just is.
What concerned Gary Lillico and many others who responded to our show were scenes like these. Children unbuckled in school bus crashes, being catapulted wildly during rollover collisions. And the stories of parents like Donna Noble who lost their children in school bus crashes.
Is it cost? I don't know. But what's the cost of a life? What's a life worth?
In fact, the Fifth Estate discovered that the federal vehicle regulator, Transport Canada, never told parents what it had known for years, that seatbelts in school buses would have prevented injuries and saved lives. Indeed, their own research proved it.
Love you, Jenny. Miss ya.
It's almost criminal. We know they save lives. After seeing your documentary and the mom in Alberta where the daughter was killed, I was almost choking back the tears watching that, and I felt, okay, that was kind of the trigger.
But Gary Lillico didn't just get mad. He started an online petition to get Ottawa to finally require seatbelts on school buses. He wanted to know if other bus drivers and parents agreed with him.
I looked at my wife and said, I have to do this. It might go somewhere, it might not, but I'm going to do it.
He says he was excited just to get a couple of hundred signatures. But then he noticed something starting to happen.
It's across Canada, I can see where the people are signing. You've got Regina, Winnipeg, Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver Island, Kamloops up here, just everywhere. My most recent comment is Canada does not need to lose children because seatbelts are not compulsory.
Thousands of Canadians wrote in. Even the bus driver wears a seatbelt, so what the hell is going on? Said one parent.
And we're at 37,515.
And the signatures kept coming, tens of thousands of them. And we got a huge response to our school bus seatbelt story too. School boards across the country considering seatbelts on their own, and newspaper editorials calling for change. And almost everyone asked the same thing. Why doesn't Transport Canada require seatbelts on school buses as it does in cars? Well, the answer to that goes all the way back to 1984, to a now well-known Transport Canada crash test. It was a major production. They even did a promotional video with the National Film Board.
The final checks. Cameras loaded, dummies in position.
Buses with dummies were driven head-on into a wall, accompanied by ominous music. According to Transport Canada, a seating system called compartmentalization is used in school buses to keep children safe in an accident, even without seatbelts.
The high-back padded seats absorb the energy of the impact.
But our investigation discovered Transport Canada had done another, more recent study in 2010 that contradicted that earlier report. In it, Transport Canada concluded that existing seat padding on school buses is not effective in side impacts and rollovers and does not do enough to reduce or eliminate the serious injuries. Simply put, the school buses failed that safety test. But publicly, Transport Canada stuck to its original story and kept the 2010 study quiet until the past few months, when we asked for it.
In 2010, you were the lead on a study for Transport Canada.
That's correct.
What was the conclusion?
Well, the conclusion was with the seat belts that the seat belts do prevent ejection.
Which showed that compartmentalization was not adequate.
In inside impact and in rollovers, yes.
I've looked for these results on the website, and are they there? I haven't been able to find them.
I don't believe so. No, they're not there.
Was this ever released publicly?
Not that I'm aware of.
8 years would go by before safety expert Suzanne Tilco's bosses at Transport Canada released that report to us, even as school bus crashes and injuries kept mounting. When the Fifth Estate made that revelation public, many politicians were horrified.
If you don't know,
like Kathleen Wynne. The former Ontario Premier was once also the province's Transportation and Education Minister.
you know what, there are no words. I mean, those are tragedies that are just beyond imagining. I am so sorry.
So when you had been involved in this as you had in your various capacities, and you saw that broadcast on the Fifth Estate, what was going through your mind?
Well, I felt terrible. You know, I felt terrible that hundreds of kids had been injured in the intervening period that we could have prevented.
And Wynne says even she was kept in the dark about what Transport Canada really knew about seatbelts and school buses and safety.
I wish I'd had the evidence. I wish I'd had the information. And I can guarantee you that if I were there today, I would be taking action. And had I had the information in 2010, I would have taken action.
And the accidents have kept happening. For example, this past September in Innisfil, Ontario, just north of Toronto. As this school bus rolled over, unbelted students were flung out of their seats, crashing into the roof, the walls, and each other. 11th grader Billy Mazanik was on the bus that day.
I got flown out of my seat. It felt like I was probably spinning for at least 15 seconds. So I didn't know what was gonna happen, and it was very scary. I wasn't sure if I would come out of it alive.
Billy's mom, Lisa, was at home when she got the call from Billy's sister, who was also on the bus.
She said the bus flipped over, the bus rolled. We've been in an accident, Billy's hurt. It's obviously the worst phone call that you could get as a parent, of course.
Lisa was just down the road and got to the scene even before the first responders.
So I was looking inside and I saw the most injured who couldn't move, and they were at that point saying, I can't move, I can't get up, I can't feel my leg.
Her son Billy severely injured his collarbone and suffered a concussion. He hasn't set foot on a school bus since.
I think everyone in the crash was felt very afraid, on the school bus after that. And obviously, everyone that I've talked to says, why wasn't there seatbelts on the bus? And it would have prevented most, if not all, the injuries, I think.
We're putting all our trust into the system, like the government, and they're going on to this bus every day, free, without seatbelts, but yet we wouldn't do the same if they were in our car.
And there's more. We heard from you, the public, but also from an industry insider, a whistleblower who told us about yet another safety risk on some school buses. He leaked us this document, which states that hundreds of minibuses in Canada are defective and put kids at an increased risk of injury. The buses were manufactured between 2011 and 2018 by a Canadian company called Microbird Girardin. The safety issue is faulty seat padding in some of the buses. But for the public, it's virtually impossible to know exactly which of those buses have that defect. Transport Canada has known of the problem since July. What the public wasn't told was what was leaked to us, that since a remedy for the problem wasn't immediately available, the company informed school bus depots that your buses can be kept in service.
Which means that since September, there have been buses carrying potentially thousands of kids to school and back with inadequate crash protection, thus putting them at risk in the event of an accident.
Next question, the member for Don Valley West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a question about student safety today to the Minister of Transportation.
Today, Kathleen Wynne is a backbencher in the Ontario Legislature.
Through the media, specifically through CBC, Mr. Speaker, we've now learned that a 2010 Transport Canada study concluded that 3-point seatbelts would save lives. That report was...
She's recently tabled a private member's bill at Queen's Park, legislation that would require the installation of seatbelts in all of Ontario's school bus fleet.
Can we count on your support, Mr. Speaker?
There's new evidence that wasn't available. I know that the opposition will say, well, you were there all that time, why didn't you do it? The fact is, I didn't have the information. Now I have the information, I'm doing the thing that I can do. I hope that the government will take it up. This is not an issue that would create a partisan rift. This is the safety of children we're talking about.
So what would you say to your federal Liberal cousins in Ottawa who are now looking at this?
I would say do it as quickly as possible. I think that Ontario can move ahead on its own, but the fact is that we've got 12 other provinces and territories that need to have the same support and the same standard. We need a standard across the country.
And that point was underlined only last week in Alberta. Yet another school bus accident on the Blood Reserve, 40 minutes west of Lethbridge. Lacey Eagle-Plume's daughters were on that bus. Her oldest, flung out of her seat, suffered a head injury and crushed her shoulder. Her youngest broke her ribs.
She was in complete shock. She thought she was dreaming. She thought she was going to die. She just kept telling me, I love you, Mom, I love you.
Once again, there were, of course, no seatbelts on that school bus.
Knowing that this could have been prevented, their injuries, it really makes me angry that they gambled my children's lives like that. It's very upsetting to know that they know and haven't done anything about it yet.
After our first story aired, Federal Transport Minister Mark Garneau ordered a review of Transport Canada's no seatbelt policy for school buses. As quickly as possible, he said. That was 6 weeks ago. Canadians are still waiting.